Good morning, my locals. This is OG Locals back from my weekly live. And it's early, beautiful morning. The weather's changing. Fall's kicking in, and I'm out here getting my day started. So we'll have a good talk this morning. Let people load up for a second. And this is OG Local Lots Trixie. I want to talk about her a little bit today. I really like this dog. She is 3/4 Mayday, 1/4 Old Family Red off my blood. So I was doing a little research on her pedigree. And we'll get into that. So we'll talk philosophy again, how to live to be an OG, free, alive and free and old, peaceful life, some tips. We'll talk about Trixie and her pedigree. Well, I think she's going to be a good dog to the program. And let's see, we'll talk about some breeding. Which dog am I talking about? Let's pick one out. Maybe OG Knox. Yeah, I haven't talked about OG Knox. I'll do a little story on OG Knox. He was my pure Chinaman dog that I got from Tom Garner. And then some breedings I have coming up. So everybody load up, man. We're going to take you on a little magic carpet ride. Get your coffee, get your smoke on, get your drink on, get whatever you get on in the morning, get your day started. So let's see. Tips on how to stay free. So, I guess we'll talk about the legal system. That's a good one. And I'm not advocating, promoting anything. I'm just saying these are facts. You have to know the way the system works. It's just a fact. And then maybe I'll get into the difference between a witness, a snitch, and a rat. You know, there's a difference in the legal system. And there are values that I struggle with is when you're dealing with society's rules versus the values I was raised with. And, you know, growth comes out of that, you know. So here's a little tip. Anytime you're trying something new and it's uncomfortable, okay, that means it's new to you. That's why it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel right. I think as they say, after doing the same thing 20 times and it becomes comfortable, second nature now, after 20 times of doing it, that's called growth. That means you've grown mentally, emotionally. You've grown because something that was new to you and uncomfortable, through the experience of it, you've grown as a person, and now it's comfortable. So anytime you're trying something new, you know, I always try something new to keep your mental state and your emotional state healthy. You know, that's what growth is. So, I always try to grow throughout life. Good damn bee. You know, that's what I always advocate. And let's see. On the legal system, this is a fact. The legal system is if everybody in society that's been charged with the felony took it to trial, the conviction rate would probably go down. A lot of charges would probably be dropped. A lot of people probably wouldn't go to prison. And that's the truth. Because what I'm explaining is the legal system is a government system. It's based on a budget and it's based on insurance. So on that budget, they only have so much money that they can prosecute people for. So that's why plea deals are pretty much the legal system works off plea deals. So what they're trying to do is we can't take everyone to trial, so we're going to offer plea deals and close cases. And that's really what they're doing. They're just trying to close cases, get them off the books. And so what they're looking at is, okay, we're going to offer you this plea deal, close the case, you're going to end up paying a fine or going to prison on a felony case. If everybody said, no, I'm taking it to trial, there's a couple things that are going to happen. One is the legal system cannot prosecute and take everybody to trial that they file charges on. There's just not enough money in the budget to do that. And that's a fact. So if you're charged with a felony, I'm just an old school guy. I believe, like, you take it to trial, man. What's the difference? 20, 50, 30 years, you're going to prison. But if you go to take it to trial, and you're found guilty in your sentence, then you could always appeal that conviction. Okay, so if you take a plea deal, you can never appeal that conviction. So that's why I always say, especially on serious crimes, when you're looking at major time, I'm a big believer, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. So if you don't want to go to prison, just don't do the crime. That's pretty simple. But if you're playing in that field, then you have to accept there are consequences for those actions. We all know what the law is. We already know what's going to happen. Do your research. If you're not familiar with what type of what the law is, what type of sentencing you're going to get for committing certain crimes, do your research and then decide, is that something I really want to do or not? Do I really want to take the risk of doing that type of time? Living in a cage. I mean, that's an objective evaluation that every person needs to make for themselves. So my tip is, I think in my experiences, it was like, I get charged with a misdemeanor. Okay, whatever. I'll plead no contest on an infraction, get it downgraded to an infraction, pay the fine, no contest. I just don't want to be caught in the system. If I'm charged with a felony, I'll plead a no contest. If it's downgraded to a misdemeanor, no jail time. Misdemeanors cover the record. Rule of thumb. That's just rule of thumb. If you're charged with a felony, take it to trial. What do you got to lose? And if you committed the crime or you're falsely accused, a felony is going to stay on your record forever. You're probably going to do prison time, most likely. And then at that point is, if you get convicted, at least if you took it to trial, you can appeal that case and possibly get your overturned or get your sentence reduced. But if you take a plea deal on a felony, that doesn't happen. You do the plea time because you admitted to the crime. On a trial, you don't admit to the crime. You were just found guilty by a jury. So that's the difference. So my rule of thumb is philosophy is, I do think there are frivolous prosecutions A lot of these cases that people are prosecuted on that end up in plea deals probably should have never been cases, or they should have been charged what they are, an infraction or misdemeanor. They weren't felonies. Or at least the evidence wasn't there. Had you taken it to trial, then there's a chance you'd be found not guilty for the felony. So exercise your rights under the U.S. Constitution as a citizen of the United States. If you're ever found in a situation that you're charged with felony and you're looking at long-term time, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. But if you're charged with that felony or looking at time, take it to trial. That's my 2 cents as an OG. What do you got to lose? This leads into, I don't want to get into, maybe I'll get into a snitch, a rat snitch. Don't be a rat. Don't be a snitch. I think that's the difference between a witness, a rat, and a snitch is a witness is just somebody who witnesses a crime, and that's 95% of society that doesn't live by the street rules. They're going to be witnesses. They're going to testify that they witnessed a crime. A rat or a snitch is someone who actively engages in criminal activity and maybe even one of the worst perpetuators of that criminal activity. And they've been operating with impunity, committing crimes. And then as soon as they get popped, they're afraid to do the time. So they start snitching on everybody else to reduce their time or get out of the crime or getting out of doing time. That's the problem I have with rats and snitches, is you knew the risk, you actively engaged in the activity. You might have even been an instigator of the activity. And you were afraid to do the time, so why'd you do the crime? And if you did the crime and you're not willing to do the time, then keep your mouth shut. If you can't keep your mouth shut, don't be a snitch or a rat. Just don't do the crime. Pretty much common sense. So that's the problem, I think, why I and most people don't like snitches or rats. And snitches or rats is not just from the streets. Law enforcement doesn't like snitches or rats in their ranks for the same reasons. Is you are snitching and ratting on fellow people that you were actively participating in that activity, and you're afraid to do the time. So you're giving up other people to give your time. So that's the difference. A witness is just like you're a witness. You witness something. You can witness someone. I think here's where I view as a witness. Someone abusing children, someone abusing seniors, someone abusing weak, innocent people. That's a witness. Is like you witness someone abusing a child, and you say something like, "Hey, yeah, I didn't like it." Most likely, I'll tell people, "Don't do that in front of me. I don't like that shit." Don't be abusing children or seniors or even women in front of me. Is like, just don't do it around me. I don't like it. I don't want to be part of it. I don't want to get caught up. So I'm pretty much, I'll remove myself from the situation. I'll tell that person. Just because I don't want it coming back on me and saying, like, did you see this person doing this? Were you a witness? No, I don't want to be a witness to nothing. I stay in my lane and I mind my own business type stuff. So anyway, those are my 2 cents on philosophy. If you get charged with a felony, take it to trial. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. And if you're going to do the time, just do it like a man, standing up, do the time. And if you're a witness, you have to decide if you want to be a witness to a crime, especially if it's against children or seniors or people of the weaker in society that should be protected, or whether you want to just remove yourself from the situation so you don't get caught up. But don't be a rat or a snitch. Don't be one of those people that is out there committing crimes in society against people, and you're afraid to do the time, so you get caught and you start giving up other people because you're afraid to do your time like a man. So those are my points of philosophy. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. All right, we'll get into some dogs now. Let's talk about my baby. I really like this dog. This is OG Loco Lots Trixie, and she was a gift to me. And she was actually planned breeding, I don't know, 5-6 years in the making. I think when you think about, the breeding on this dog here, it goes back 5-6 years to pull it off. So her mom was OG Loco's Crazy Angel, also known as Izzy. She was my dog that was off of the breeding of OG Loco's Jinx, who was an inbred old family red dog. Ruger, off OG Ruger, bred back to his mom. Allison, no bones about it. So it was heavy on the Hemphill Wilder blood. Ruger back to his mom was pulling a lot on that old Hemphill Wilder blood. And so what I did is I took Izzy, who was a product. I took Jinx. Jinx, who's Izzy's mom, who was a product of that inbreeding of Ruger back to his dam, and bred her to Malkemp's Michael Myers, who was one of the tightest bred or best bred Mayday dogs, in my opinion, in my area that I was able to get access to. And what I liked about Michael Myers was his breeding, and that he was heavy bred on Grand Champion Mayday to his sister, Dragon Lady, and then he had an out on Grand Champion Buck. So you had the inbred Mayday to his sister, Grand Champion Dragon Lady. So you're doubling up on that breeding off of Yellow and Hollyoaks Dolly. And then you had the out on Grand Champion Buck to a daughter of Grand Champion Buck to Mayday, which made the Michael Myers blood. So I call it a Buck Mayday line. That's the Buck Mayday line of Mayday dogs. That's the way I describe it. And those dogs, I think, are different than some of the other Mayday dogs that do not have the Buck blood in them. And that produced Izzy, the damned Trixie, and Weddle, who Weddle was Izzy's littermate, who I have on my yard. So OG Weddle Loco. And there was a couple other ones that produced real good, but they're no longer alive. So we're really down to the last two dogs off that breeding, is Weddle and Izzy. So we tried to breed Izzy a couple times and weren't having success raising a litter of pups off her. So she was getting up there in age. So I ended up sending Izzy to a friend, hey, let's see if we can get her bred. See if he can get her bred and raise a litter of pups off her. And he had Kraken's little Mayday on his yard. So I was like, breed her to little Mayday and see what we get. And this was Trixie. So Trixie was the gift back to me of breeding Kraken's little Mayday to OG Loco's Crazy Angel. So that makes her 3/4 Mayday with the 1/4 Old Family Red. So that's why I said for like 5-6 years in the making to produce her. What little Mayday brought to the table was new blood that I didn't have. He was double bred on Grand Champion Barracuda, he had a line of Macho Bear 2, and he had an out on Grand Champion Tango. So that's new to my yard in this pup. I already have Michael Myers blood. So I was doing the research today is what were the common ancestors between the OG Loco Family Red, their Jinx, and the little Mayday dog. And her pedigree pretty much shows she's, I think, 25 times Hollingsworth Dolly, like 24 times Grand Champion Yellow, and 21 times Grand Champion Mayday in 8 generations. So that means when you look at her pedigree over 8 generations, those dogs are the predominant dogs in that pedigree, and they're going to have the higher influence of genetic contribution to the pups. So when you're doing breeding, what you're hoping on is the DNA that's pulled into these pups. Those dogs that have the higher propensity in the pedigree, because they're stacked, that their genes, the pups are going to pull heavily from those genes, because it's a random selection. So when you're breeding, it's just random. But the more times a dog shows up in the pedigree, you reduce that random selection. So you're hoping on the DNA when the father lines up with the DNA of the mom, and you're hoping that those genes from Dolly, Mayday, and Yellow line up, and we call it a click. So ideally, that's what you're looking at in the pedigree. And it's all off proven dogs. So then you're saying not only is it the breeding there, but they're proven dogs in that breeding. But one of the things I found today in doing my research, I like to go back. It's like, okay, where is it? The common ancestors between my blood and the little Mayday blood. And what I found was Macho Bear 2 is the great grandsire of Kraken's little Mayday on the bottom side. And Macho Bear 2, bottom side, he was 1/8 or 1/16 Otter's Cami B. And that's where I found it. Otter's Cami B was off Tonka and a pure Klaus bitch. That Klaus, I can't remember her name, Otter Cami B's mom, is the same blood I have in my OG 44 Magnum dogs. It's all off of that Tojo to Crenshaw's Sassy or Kansas. So I think I told the story before about 44 Magnum had 2 lines that went back to when James Crenshaw bred a pure Klaus bitch to Tojo and produced Sassy, I believe. And those dogs went on to produce champions. So that line, that breeding went on. You'll see it in some famous yards of their working dogs. So you'll see that. So that caught me by surprise. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know Macho Bear carried that Cami B blood, which goes back to Crenshaw's Kansas and Sassy, which is the same blood I have in 44 Magnum. So because Jinx and Ruger are heavily bred off the 44 Magnum blood, pretty high percentages, then what my thinking was, by doing the breeding of little Mayday to Izzy, that the hoping that the genes that were way back in little Mayday through Macho Bear to back to Cami B would click with the 44 Magnum blood that's in Jinx. And so in this dog here, hopefully she's representative of those old genes that are both in little Mayday and Izzy, but hidden way back there. So this is where you get a throwback. If it's done right, it may not be a large percentage of blood in either dog up close, but it's stacked in the gene pool. Genes will line up, and you could pull those little genes out, but they click because it's both on the sire and dam sides, and you pull them out, and that is called a throwback. Mm-hmm. So ideally, what we're hoping with Trixie, that blood has proven to click through Macho Bear when they cross the Candy Bee blood on the Tombstone Bolio blood that produced Macho Bear. So we're hoping that same click between that worked in Macho Bear would also work in Trixie, because she carries that same blood on her mom's side. So that's just a little backstory on Trixie. But what I noticed about Trixie, I've had her, about a month? I'm just evaluating her conformation. She's actually, I think, going to be more like an ADBA dog. So I don't know if you can see her, but I always measure my dogs right here around the rib cage. That tells me if they're going to be barrel-chested or if they're going to have narrow chests. You can always tell that on a pup. And she's very much in a V. So she's going to be more of a narrow-chested dog, not a barrel-chested dog. And if you can see the leg on her, she has long legs. And if you look at her hind legs, this is stuff I evaluate, she has long, lean muscle in her hind legs. They're not tight, bulky muscle. So what I think she's going to mature into is a tall, lean dog, which is what I'm hoping for. And if she matures into a tall, lean dog, then that blood, she should perform. She should be more athletic. What you want is long, tall, long, lean muscle for your working dogs, because they don't overheat. They don't tie up. Tying up is when you have short, thick muscle. You'll see this a lot in horses. They tie up. So what happens is their muscles contract and they get like a cramp, and they tie up, and they get lactic acid that spreads throughout the muscles. So you try to avoid that. I mean, it looks good. If you like a thick, powerful dog, it looks good. They're strong. But for long working, long running, hunting, hog hunting, where you're really putting hours in, you want a dog that's tall, long, and lean. And that's what we got here. That's what I think I got here. And look at her neck. She has a long neck. That is something I also noticed on her, which I like. You always want to look at a long neck. See, I can fit my whole hand on her neck. Because when they're long neck like that, they can turn. They can turn like that. And that's another thing you look at these pups. And these are things I'm noticing just on her conformation alone. Right now, sit on her and just let her mature. Is the long lean muscle, the long leg, the long neck, the V chest. This dog should be an athlete. But I was also looking at her head and the slope of her head. So she's not going to have a big fat head, but if you look at those old Chico Lopez dogs, they all have long snouts on them. And I always wonder, man, where are they getting those long snouts? Well, she has that. She's going to have the long snout on her. And I think I read something of Tom Garner years ago. He wrote, biting force is leverage like an alligator or crocodile. The longer the snout, the more leverage they get. I don't know if that's true or not, but it makes sense. It's like cracking a lug nut. You need a long wrench to break it loose, to get the leverage on it. A short wrench, you'll be struggling. So that makes sense. The longer nose should give her more leverage and biting ability. more like a crocodile, more like a alligator shape head. Shorter noses tend not to have that leverage. But, that's just confirmation. I'm a big believer. A dog, it's going to bite or it's not going to bite, regardless of the head shape. So I have dogs that just love to bite. They bite and hold and won't let go. And I got other dogs that they'll work different things. They'll bite, let go, grab, get a new hole, bite, let go, get a new hole. But I got some dogs, they're just going to bite and hold. They're not going to let go no matter what. So this is what I'm thinking about with Trixie. I'm going to let her grow up. I want to shout out to BCK and to OG Family Lot. We pulled this off. I really like these little Mayday dogs. I would encourage anybody that likes Mayday blood to get access to the little Mayday dog while he's around. I've seen other litters off him that look real good. So he's a young dog, up and coming. If you like that Barracuda blood with the Macho Bear out and the Grand Champion Tango out, I think that's a good access. You could get access to him and breed off him because I'm liking what he's producing. And I'm really liking Trixie. And she got an attitude too. Yeah, see? She's a lover too. What I've noticed with some of my pups, the more human submissive, the more bonding they are. And I'll probably show, let's see, Margot Robbie's that way. She's very human submissive, very bonding, and Dora's that way. Those dogs, when they're very human submissive and they're very bonded and loving like this, like Trixie is, tend to be deep game for some reason. That's just been my experience because, they're gonna submit. They're gonna be submissive with their owner and humans. They're gonna sort of cower like they've been abused. But with other animals, they're relentless. They're like a switch goes off, and that's something I see. I've seen it over 35 years, and so my thinking is Dora, Trixie, and Margot. They're showing those traits now. If they mature to what I think they're going to mature, those early signs are signs that are always identifiers for me that these dogs tend to work out for some reason. I don't know why. So it's worth sitting on them and letting her mature. But yeah, keep an eye on Trixie. She is a one of a kind for me. She'll be bred probably to OG Weddle Loco in a couple of years. Probably to Scarface. But she's a really cool dog. I really like her. So shout out to BCK and Lot for pulling this breeding off. Appreciate it, man. Oh, and shout out to Lot. If you guys want a pup like Trixie, okay, here's your chance. And don't hesitate. I always believe, a baller gets what he wants. He knows what he wants. It's already figured out. That's what I want. That's nothing. Nobody going to stop me from getting what I want because I already know what I want. You got to have that mentality. If you like the Mayday blood or the Barracuda blood, and you want something like that, and you want some of them off little Mayday, Lot is doing a breeding, 2 breedings, OG Family, and he's over in Mississippi. So I believe he's going to do that soon, and those pups will be available. So he has a new dog inbred off of Melkamp Stanky Leg. Stanky Leg's pedigree is heavy on the Mayday Grand Champion Buck. So basically, again, it's in that family of the Mayday Buck blood. And he's going to be bred to Izzy, Trixie's mom. So they're going to breed the stanky leg dog to Izzy. What that's going to do is it's going to take more of the Mayday buck blood and stanky leg and cross it on the Michael Myers and Izzy, who's also a Mayday buck blood, and then it's going to have the old family red out. So you're going to get a heavy Mayday buck bred dog with a quarter out. Yeah, quarter out on the old family red. And that should work. You know, that breeding should work. And I know he's doing that, and those will be available to the public. And hopefully I get dogs like Trixie. 1/4 Chinaman, I believe. Yeah. So she's off of my blood, the OG Knox blood, bred to the old family red, double bred on Garner's chemo. So she's a 3/4 old family red, 1/4 on the Chinaman, double bred on the chemo blood, which goes back to the Chinaman Frisco blood. I think I lost you guys there for a second. Melita's a heck of a dog and also a good producer. So they're going to do that breeding too. So those are 2 upcoming breedings with the stanky leg dog that you can get access to. If you like that blood and that's what you want, I would recommend it. So let's talk OG Knox. Here's a little story on OG Knox. So when I was, this had been like 2016, 2017, I think. I had gotten my old family reds back to a high working level, and they were pure. You know, I purified the blood. They were working. I have all my foundation stuff now. And I had proven my first step of, could I get old family reds back to a high working level to what these dogs were bred for, which is the hunt. And I did that. I had, through selective breeding, testing, and culling, I had now gotten my dogs back to a level that, okay, they're working. I'm happy with that. This is the type of dogs I want. But one of the tests I wanted to do was, okay, now that they're working and I have the pure stuff working, can they produce with modern day fasted blood? You know, what I was trying to create with the old family reds was getting the old blood back to a working high level working status. But I also wanted to add a new strain of working pit bull to the culture, to the breeding programs that would give another option to those dogs that are out there, the Red Boy, Tombstone Bolio, Chinaman families, all those different families. And I felt like we needed to have some more diversity in the genetics of another working strain that you can get back to a high level. And ideally what I was thinking was an alternative to, or an option to pure Red Boy. That if I could get the old family reds back to a deep game working strain, similar to the Red Boy dogs, that you could use that blood also to cross with Red Boy and to cross with the other strains, and it would click and you wouldn't lose anything. You would get better dogs, but you would also have a new genetic influence, so they're not so tightly bred. You know, because a lot of the old family blood I have is way back in the pedigrees of the other families, like the Tombstone Bolio, Red Boy, even the Jocko dogs. My blood's older than that, so the Hemphill Klaus stuff would be way back in those dogs' pedigree. So it's not a true outcross. It's more like you're bringing old blood in those dogs, those families of dogs, up closer by crossing them into the old family red. That was the thinking, and it was a theory. It was like, I don't know. As a breeder, you test a lot of theories in real life. You think about these things and you plan them out, and then you try them. See, some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. But the thinking was, all right, what was my dogs lacking? Was the first thinking. And then two, what were some of the best dogs in the world that were winning at all levels all over the world? Different countries, different yards. And at that time, it was pretty much Chinaman dogs and the Mayday dogs. So I was like, okay, let me look for a well-bred Chinaman dog. I felt my dogs needed more mouth, more finishing ability. They were really game and intelligent, but I think to compete at that next level, that higher level, they needed a mouth finishing ability. So I felt crossing them in with the Chinaman blood was going to introduce those Chinaman genes to them, and it was going to click with my blood, and it was going to now add mouth and finishing ability to my dogs and take them up a notch. That was the thinking. The other thinking was my old family Reds, like I was speaking about earlier, the 44 Magnum blood in them had a shot of Tojo. Tojo was Rascal Jr. off of Rascal and Honey Bunch. And the thinking was Rascal Jr.'s grandfather was Eli Jr. and that Chinaman's grandfather was Eli Jr. or great-grandfather, one of those two. So I already had the Eli Jr. blood as an out in my 44 Magnum. It wasn't a lot, but it was in there through Tojo. And that blood had already shown to click with the Klaus, Hemphill Klaus blood I had. So we already knew that the Eli Jr. with the Hemphill Klaus was a cross that historically has worked throughout history since the 70s. It's used in a lot of families. And it clicks and it works and it produces better dogs. So the thinking was by crossing the Chinaman, a type-bred Chinaman dog, into my type-bred Old Family Reds, that it was going to click with the Eli Jr. and Chinaman and the Eli Jr. blood in my Old Family Reds, and it was going to line up and pull it out. That was the thinking and going for a type-bred Chinaman dog. So we looked, I did my research, and I started hearing a lot about Garner's Chemo down in Texas. So Garner's Chemo pretty much was gaining a reputation as a heck of a producer. This is so the story is Tom Garner sold Garner's Chemo to Texas. They ended up crossing him on some Negrino stuff, and it brought the story is it brought the Negrino dogs back to life at a high. That cross saved the strain of the pure Negrino dogs, and got him back to a high working level. So that was a story. He became known as a pretty popular producer in Texas. My thinking is that some of the best dogs were in Texas, going back to the Carver days, and all those guys, old timers, are in Texas. So if you're competing hog hunting in Texas, you're competing against some of the best. And Chemo was showing to be a producer in Texas. So my understanding was he got this reputation. Tom Garner paid a lot of money, like $15,000, to buy him back, and had him on his yard. So when I was looking for a Chinaman dog, I looked at all of Garner's Chinaman dogs, and which I felt would cross best into my Old Family Reds, and I decided to get an inbred Chemo dog, which is OG Knox. So we ended up getting an OG Knox, who was by Garner's Chemo out of a daughter of Garner's Chemo, and I believe his bottom side was Bobby Peru. So Bobby Peru, I think, is an El Negro dog. So, and he had a shot of Cardenas in there way back there, and a shot of Zebo way back there. But pretty much that's what he was a inbred Chemo dog. So I got Knox on the yard, and first time I really owned a Chinaman dog, so I wasn't really sure what I was going to get from Knox, but Knox was a good dog. He was hot. He bit hard. He was everything I thought I was going to get from a Chinaman dog. He bit hard. He stayed in hold. He was rough. He shook. He was all business. And he was a fun dog to have in the yard. He was a bulldog, so you couldn't let him around the other dogs. And him and OG Kratos hated each other. They just went at it all day. They just would run the chains and talk shit all day, like all day, with nonstop. So I ended up breeding OG Knox to my inbred dogs. So we bred them to Delilah de Los Angeles as Delilah. She was Delilah was a result of Kratos, OG Kratos, to his sister Stort's Bella. So she was an inbred OG local dog, brother-sister breeding, bred to Knox. And she produced some phenomenal dogs, hard-biting Chinaman Old Family Red dogs that are still used today. Those dogs off Delilah and Knox are used on different yards, and they're a successful cross. You could say that. It worked, and it's still working today. So if you see OG Knox cross on OG local blood, that's a good cross. And Melita, who Lots has, she's off that same breeding. She goes back to that Knox whole family breeding. And I believe I bred him to OG Local's Big Mama, which was off Ruger, bred back to his mom, Ellison's No Bones About It, and got some really good dogs off that. We got some really good dogs off Knox to the Old Family Reds. And anyway, I had gotten what I wanted off him. I farmed him out to OG Family out in Mississippi. I don't think they ever got pups off him, but Knox ended up dying of kidney disease. And so we were having problems with him on his kidneys, and he would lose a lot of weight. He went through periods. They saved him, I think, once, and then he did it again, and he didn't make it. I don't know why. I don't know if it was genetic. I don't know if it was something he ate or environmental, but he didn't live very long. I think he died around 5, 6 years old. And we don't have a lot of dogs off him. We didn't get a lot of breedings off OG Knox. One of the ones to look for that I do have pure Chinamen that carry OG Knox's blood. And that's off OG Loco's Four Brothers Diamond. So I don't know if you guys seen the video of her. She's a rough dog. She's only about 14 months old. And we'll be breeding her, staying both in the pure Eli Carver blood, and then also doing some crosses with her. So the next year or two. So I do have the OG Knox blood in Diamond. I have it in Corvino. Corvino's great OG Knox is his great-great-grandfather. And I have OG Knox in other yards that I have access to, like Melita and a few other yards that are running that blood. So we kept the OG Knox. So there's only one line of what I call the OG Knox line, which is the line that OG Family uses. That was off the chemo blood. There's other chemo dogs out there, but we specialize in the OG Knox blood, which is basically inbred chemo with the Bobby Peru. And that blood has worked, and it's continuous to work, so we really like it. So that's the story of OG Knox. He was a big dog, probably low 50s, tall. It always blew my mind with Knox because the pictures of chemo, he looked like a short, stocky dog. And Knox was long, tall-legged, so I always felt Knox pulled more from the Bobby Peru side of the family because he was a tall dog, long-legged, dark black. He looked a lot more like Bobby Pearl, in my opinion, than he did like Keanu. But that was just my observation. He was a good dog, and I really liked him, and Miss Knox, and hopefully we keep his blood alive and through Diamond and Corvino and a few other dogs we have. So if you can get access to the OG Knox blood, I'd recommend it because it really works. And those dogs, let me wrap this up about Knox. The OG Knox dogs hunt. They tend to ride the nose on a hog. They are very hard biting dogs, and they can take a hog down on a nose hold by themselves, and they just bite and don't let go. And that's something that's a trait that we're seeing with the OG Knox dogs, especially cross on the old family Reds. They ride the nose. They're face dogs. OG Knox was a face dog. I wouldn't call him a nose dog. He was more, he'd grab a hog by the side of the face and hold on. But the OG Knox cross on the old family Reds tend to be nose dogs. They will crush a nose, and by pure pressure, they could take a hog down. That's something we see, and they dance off the hind legs, which I always said, wow, they dance like a bolio dog. And yeah, I always wondered, did the bolio blood in Frisco click with the old family red blood that I have and produce these dogs that dance and work off their hind legs and ride the nose like a bolio dog? It's one of those genetic traits. I don't know, but my dogs were not known for hunting the nose and working off their hind legs like a bolio dog, but they're doing that now. Very intelligent dogs. So that wraps up Knox. So let's see, I'm going to wrap up this live this morning. Some breeding. People have been asking me, what are some good breedings coming up? I think everybody knows I have Little Bit is pregnant by OG Scooby. She's due in October. Those are going to be pure old family Reds. Little Bit is by Scooby, so it's a father-daughter breeding. I'll probably be keeping one or two. Scooby's getting up there in age. And then some will be offered to OG family, then some will be offered for sale. There won't be a lot of them. But I have to talk about the OG Scooby dogs or the OG Jew dogs. So Scooby has been a heck of a producer for me. He's produced some really good dogs. He's a game dog, and he produces game dogs, and he's off a game dog. Who's off a game dog. So when you're working with the family, I could see the lineage of OG Bull, who produced OG Jew, which was inbred bull, who produced OG Scooby, who Scooby's produced a number of game dogs, including Little Bit. Little Bit's a very game bitch. So that line of dogs has produced deep game dogs for generations for me now. So the chances of getting a very good deep game dog off Scooby 2's daughter is going to be very high because genetically it's proven itself over 3-4 generations. That's what we tend to get. And now all we're doing now is doubling up on the Scooby blood back to Little Bit, and Little Bit is a beast in her own right. So when you have a female who's a beast in her own right, bred back to her sire, who was a deep game dog, I'm only expecting these dogs to be deep game, hard biting dogs, rough. And that's the one thing I've noticed. I wouldn't say Scooby's a hard biting dog. I mean, he bites good. He's just game. But Little Bit is a hard biting bitch. And that's something I've noticed about her. She bites hard and she's rough. And she does some damage. So that was something I saw in Little Bit. I was like, wow, I would say she bites much harder than her sire does. I'll have to, look at her pedigree and see what that's pulling for. So those are going to be available. They're going to start at $2K. There won't be a lot. Be a baller. If you want what you want, get in touch with me and I'll put you on the list to get one. I'll probably only take 2 deposits. I think that's all I'll let go to the public, or 2. Depending on how many she has. I'll probably take 1 deposit and then decide how many she has and how many I'm going to let go after that. But this is a very important breeding. It's probably the only time I'm going to breed OG Scooby to his daughter, because Little Bit is heading to Texas after this to be bred to a pure red boy dog. So, a Pit Island dog, I believe. A Haymaker. I think he's a pure red boy dog. He's heavy on Haymaker blood with a quarter out on the Boomer blood. So, I'm really liking the pedigree on this male. He's from Unknown Dog Man. We were going to put that together, and as soon as Little Bit whelps this litter, she'll be sent to Texas to pull that breeding off. So that is something that's going to happen. And she's getting up there in age, so I think we're coming to the end of her breeding career. But yeah, that's what's coming up. I don't have anything else planned on my yard for another year, maybe 2 years. It all depends. Cajun Bell's probably going to get sent back to Mississippi to get bred to a pure Colby dog. Little Bit's going to be sent back to Texas to get bred to a pure red boy dog. I think on my yard, the earliest one, maybe Serenity or Bingo next year. If I do Bingo, I only want to breed one of those 2 dogs 1 year. The next one next year, I don't want 2 litters of puppies at the same time. So I'll have to decide whether it's Serenity to Corvino or whether it's Bingo to Weddle. It might be Bingo to Weddle because Weddle's getting up there in age, and one of the things I wanted to pull off was the Mayday Old Family Red with the Red Boy Old Family Red. I think Bingo to Weddle is going to bring Weddle's power, size, strength, ruggedness with Bingo's on fire. She's a typical red boy dog. So you're just gonna, it just has to work. I can't see it not working. And those pups won't be expensive. They're gonna go to working homes because it's a first time breeding. I really think Bingo could be a legend on my yard one day. She has all the makings of what I thought I would get in the Red Boy Old Family Red blood when I did the breeding. Shout out to Dirt Road. I would recommend anybody who wants to breed to a deep game, hot, pure red boy dog, go to Dirt Road's Bingo. He's a inbred Haymaker dog. I liked what he produced in Bingo, so I would recommend anyone to breed to Bingo, Dirt Road's Bingo. And I think Miss Bingo will be a legend one day on my yard. I can't see her. She'll be a foundation bitch that started the Old Family Red, OG Local Old Family Red Boy strain. So keep an eye on her. She's only about, I think, 15 months. No, she might be 16 months. She's hot, though. I like her. So anyway, man, I just want to shout out to everybody. Thanks for sticking with me. Say bye, Trixie. Keep an eye open for Trixie in the next couple of years. We'll see what she produces. And stay free, stay out of trouble. And I'll wrap it up. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. I'm out, brothers.